Hello, you're very welcome back to the Rossie Podcast in association with Shannonside FM. This week I'm joined online by Cathal, Cregg and Conor Devaney to look back on Roscommon's 9-point defeat against Galway in Salt Hill last Sunday. Okay, you're welcome back to the Rossie Podcast. We're looking back this week on Roscommon's 9-point defeat against Galway in Salt Hill last Sunday. I'm joined by Cathal, Cregg and Conor Devaney to look back on this one. Lads, there's no point saying any otherwise. Disappointing is the word that I'd sum up Sunday's performance. Cathal, I might start with yourself. Just your own first thoughts on the game last Sunday.
Yeah, very disappointing, I suppose. It probably wasn't a game I thought that Roscommon would win, but I thought it might be a 4 or 5 point defeat. Look, lost by 9 points and probably could have lost it by more. I think overall, just the supporters, players, management, everyone, I just think they'll be very disappointed with, I suppose, how they fared out and how they stacked up against Galway. The reality is Galway they're a good side. They've been in 2 of the last 3 All-Ireland finals, but you would have still expected Roscommon going back up to Division 1 that they would have had a good crack off them. But the reality is the game was over early doors enough. By 50 minutes it was done and dusted. So that's really it.
Yeah, Conor, because it was cagey enough to start off. I think it was about 4-4 with about 20 minutes gone, and Galway got that goal. Maybe a bit lucky, comes off the post, a fisted effort. From there on, Galway were pretty much comfortable. They never really felt at any stage like Roscommon were going to come back. Maybe they got a couple of 2 points at the start of the second half, but even still, Galway were still about 6 points up at that stage.
Yeah, it always felt, even when it was closer in the first 15 or 20 minutes, it still felt like Galway had something extra. Even by the end of the game, I think there was still a sense that if Galway needed to, they could have even got a goal. There was chances they put over the bar that they really could have gone in for the kill if they really needed to or wanted to. So they were a far better team. As Cathal said, I agree there. It was expected. I don't think many Roscommon fans really expected Roscommon to win. I think the turnout on the day of Roscommon supporters wasn't brilliant. So I think that somewhat got to do with the expectation levels as well for a Connacht semi-final. You'd expect more there. So I think what happened was Roscommon played the same way as they have played in Division 2. Struggled in some games in Division 2, did okay in other games. But now you're facing a Division 1 team, an All-Ireland contender, and there's a big step up, and we just didn't make the step up. We played the same way as we did throughout Division 2, which was just about good enough for that, but not good enough for a Division 1 team.
Yeah, if anything, Cathal, it kind of showed...
Yep. Darragh, there was a huge period, just you mentioned the goal. It was 4 up till that. I watched back the first half last night, and Roscommon went from being level within 3.5 minutes to being 6 points down. Tierney got the goal. There was a bad kick out. We actually won the break, gave the ball away. Tierney went up and kicked a point. We went back down. Kieran was turned over. Really good Galway defending, and then we gave away a sloppy free on the edge of the D, and Tierney actually kicked 2 points. So within that 3.5 minutes, so I think he kicked that to put them 6 up after 22 minutes on the clock, and that was 3.5 minutes after he had scored the goal when it was level. So that was a huge turning point in that period. And Roscommon never recovered after that.
Yeah, it kind of goes to show as well that, you can't nearly turn on league form to championship form, in an instant, if you like, because Roscommon were struggling towards the end of the league. And going into championship, the hope was that Roscommon would up their game for championship, but that just didn't really materialise.
No.
No. Yeah, go on, Cathal.
In the league games, Roscommon were playing well in patches in the games, and they were playing very poorly in patches. And they've done it similar yesterday. It's just that, as Conor mentioned his previous point, you just can't do that against a team of the calibre of Galway, because they'll really, really punish you. You've seen what Cavan done, what Westmeath done, what Meath done to us in the league, in the patches in them games that we did play poorly in. And they're teams that are miles behind Galway, realistically. Like, Galway just absolutely annihilated us yesterday when we went through them periods, like.
Yeah, the biggest concern coming into the game, and it was based on the league, to be fair. And it's unfortunate for the lads that are in around that position, but the midfield was a concern coming in because you're basically coming up against a team in Galway who, on their starting 15, can actually probably play 5 of their players in midfield, and they kind of did alternate a little bit on Sunday. So we're struggling to get a pairing in midfield, never mind a pairing that are playing well together. So that was always going to be an issue coming into Sunday. It was probably the biggest concern for us common supporters, and unfortunately, probably okay in the first half, but in the second half, they really did take over around the middle. And that's just not just midfielders, that's people now, especially with the new rules with the kick out, it's everyone around the middle. I'm not just saying midfielders, but the middle third was going to be an issue, and that's what did happen on the day, especially the second half.
Yeah, because Conor, I mean, the second half as well. I mean, it felt like Keane Darcy for he was playing wing forward for Galway. He nearly caught everything in the second half. Now, the longer kickouts now are nearly meant to make it more 50-50. I mean, like, did Roscommon win 10% of all kickouts in the second half? You know, that's, although Galway were catching it clean, they were winning all the breaks as well. I mean, that's a major concern. That's one of the most disappointing things I say of that game as well, that we weren't competitive at all around the middle.
Look, as I said, it has been a concern all year. Against Meath, it was a major issue. It was an issue in the second half against Westmeath, and that was, as you said, that was breaks against Westmeath. It wasn't catching clean ball at all. So whatever about the catching ball, that probably won't happen too much, but it did happen on Sunday, unfortunately. It's just been an issue around the middle for us. I don't think we have some of it is just the physical nature of the Galway players versus our players. Some of it is definitely that. And then some of it is just we haven't got a midfield pairing that's been playing consistently at all. I mean, it was changed again last week. So it's just difficult to know if we're going to continue to struggle there, or are they going to sort it out or change it up again. So it's an area of huge concern.
Yeah, I mean, Cathal, that's 2 wins now since February. I think the Monaghan League game in the Hyde, we bet Cork down in Cork, and we obviously bet London, drew Westmeath, and you have your few losses in there. So again, I mean, that's a big concern. Only 2 wins since the turn of February, you know, into March.
Yeah, I suppose that was probably the biggest concern for people going into the game is the patchy form we mentioned earlier, and probably Conor touched on it there. Probably not having the set team. Look, you don't know injury wise and stuff like that, but even physicality alone and the number of, I would have expected Keith Doyle and Eddie Nolan to start. They were probably the most likely partnership. And just the physicality that Galway have around the middle, you would have expected that Doyle would have started the game, just for his size alone to try and match up against them. So I think going forward, Conor mentioned there has been a lot of chopping and changing on the team. That's probably the one thing that they need to get right. They just don't have a set team, I would say. A lot of players through the league have got a lot of minutes. A lot of younger players have got a lot of minutes, which I think will stand to Roscommon in the future. But probably not ideal when you're doing it in a championship game. I suppose as a result of giving all the minutes to the younger players predominantly, you know, you don't have a set team going in. There was a number of positions, even when the team was named, I kind of wasn't expecting that team to play. I thought there was going to be, you know, I thought the likes of Darragh, Cregg might have played, started. Dylan Ruan might have started. I would have expected Keith Doyle to start, you know. So that's probably something that they have to get right, and they've only 4 or 5 weeks to sort it out. But they need to decide what their set team is.
The problem with that is going to be you're going into a group phase now where there'll probably be one team of similar standard, we'd say, in Roscommon. If you're lucky, maybe 2, and obviously 2 better teams at least. So, or we'll say have been better this season anyway. So the problem with that is we're probably going to have to change the team now as a result of this performance. Then you could be going into the first group game against a top 4 or 5 team, whatever it might be. That first result may not go our way, and then you find yourself, do we need to change the team again? Now, you could be lucky and be playing a similar team to ourselves in the very first day, and then you might be able to keep the same team, as Cathal said, for the 3 group games. So hopefully that's what happens. But like, there are going to be changes, even it's just for the sake of the bad performance, you're going to make changes. That's going to happen. So what happens then is, if you're playing a top team, are you going to change it again for the second group game and again for the third? So it's very tricky situation we find ourselves in now in terms of the personnel on the field.
Yeah, that'll be a very difficult game too. I think it's going to be, Darragh, from what you were saying earlier, it'll be a provincial winner away. So you're getting the hardest game first, which is, the likely winners of each of the provinces. You're looking at a very tough game.
Yeah, because I mean, look, in a potential world, you could be facing Galway again in Salthill the next game. Now, how would you approach that if Galway beat Mayo? Because we've seen last year, actually, we're in a probably similar situation. I think we played Mayo in the Hyde last year in the semi-final. It was flat enough going into the group stage. We actually get Dublin Croke Park, and you get actually Mayo again in the group stage, and it was a similar result. So, you have 4 weeks, 5 weeks to pick this up. I mean, Conor, you've probably been a part of squads that have gone out with some poor results. Maybe don't have that long of a break. Maybe 4 or 5 weeks. Maybe it could be only a week or two. How do you pick it up after a disappointing and deflating defeat like that?
Well, starting with the positives, I would say that the positive thing is that normally you're talking about championship football. And we've seen this with Roscommon against Tyrone, against different teams over the last couple of years. There's always going to be one massive performance. And the good thing about that is, in these group stages, now it's the final year of these group stages, so one massive performance might just be enough to get you to the next stage. So, that's the positive. So you have to just start again, make your few changes, practice your few things, and just hope for that big performance. And there's so much disappointment for that game. Like, we're expecting those players, and we know those players not performing to their best of their ability, and they want to show that they can do that again. Whatever, even if it's the subs that come on or the players that start, it doesn't matter. I think there's going to be one big game, probably one that we don't expect it to be. So that's going to happen. And luckily, with this group stage scenario, that might be good enough for us to advance. So you wouldn't know, but there's hope yet.
Yeah, I think it's vital, like, some of the more experienced players, take control of it. These sort of things have happened before. They'll happen again, but it's probably the response is the most important thing. It's vital that the bigger players, the older players, lots of experienced players around there, and they'll be, look at, all the supporters are disappointed, but I can guarantee you no one will be as disappointed as the lads themselves. They're the ones that have put in savage work over the last 6 or 8 months, and it just didn't go to plan. That's the reality of it. Like, they did get promotion. They've had 3, I suppose the league, Connacht Championship, and the All Ireland series are the 3 things they'll be going after for the year. They got the first one. The second one hasn't gone to plan, and they need to just regroup and have a good crack at this All Ireland series again. As Conor said, one win can get you through that group stage. So there's a lot of weeks to get things there. And I suppose we know that the team, there's more quality in it, but they probably need to get back to basics and, I suppose, focus in on that work rate. I think that probably wasn't there. The energy levels and the work rate, whether that's personnel or mindset, it's only people in the group can know that. I think we probably do need to get maybe a few more players with real work ethic into the group to get things moving again. I mentioned players like Dylan Ruan who really go after it, have a high energy, high work rate. Players like Niall Kilroy in the past, David King, and them type of players, and get things moving.
Yeah, just going back to your question there, sorry, and I said, maybe the positive of what's going to happen over the next few weeks, there might be one big performance, but the negative, unfortunately, in those situations that you said I might have been in the past, is that you can be 100% sure that there's going to be a lot of giving out now, and a lot of players wondering, why didn't I get minutes? Why did he get loads of minutes? And then ultimately, where that leads is nothing to do with the players, really. The players will sort that out themselves or whatever. It leads back to the management, and that's where the management comes under pressure then to put in a big performance for themselves and for for their 3-year term or 4-year, whatever it's going to be. So they all of a sudden, from being doing well, getting promoted to Division 1, they come under scrutiny from now on as well. So that's another aspect over the next few weeks that will be interesting.
Yeah, because the management, I'm sure, will be probably going back to last year. As I said, a similar position. You're going into the group, and I think even German might have said it as well after the season was finished, that they knew they only had to really beat Cavan in that last group game, and they were in that preliminary quarter-final. Realistically, Roscommon won't top the group, so second and third, you're in a preliminary quarter-final. It's just about being home or away. So Roscommon will be thinking, right, we're going in as third seeds. We win our game against the fourth seeds. Who knows? You might get no disrespect now because Clare have beaten us a couple of times and dumped us out of the championship, but you could get Clare as a second seed as well. You win one of those games, you're in a preliminary quarter-final, and you're where you want to be. You're one game away from Croke Park then.
Well, you've summed up the reason they're getting rid of these groups. I think that's exactly why it should be gone. In fairness, it is going, so I think that's a good thing. But you're right. In terms of the group, you're right. I don't think it makes a massive difference to a team like Roscommon. If we're third seed, we probably have one equal team to us that the big performance might come in, and then you're in a preliminary quarterfinal. So it's not a massive difference to us. We just have to perform in one of those games. And look at that might happen. The expectation levels are way down now. The year has been average. So that's when maybe there might be that big performance. So that is the positive, as you described there with the group.
Yeah, Cathal as well. The forward play, just maybe recently. I know that we're, a lot of people from the outside are looking at the defence. We got cleaned at midfield at the weekend, unfortunately. But is our forward play probably at the standard we'd expect at the moment? Like 18 points, okay, it's not too bad. New York scored 20 against Galway. And I suppose the old age saying of Roscommon have forwards. I don't know. Are we still seeing the best of anyone? I mean, apart from Ben O'Carroll at the weekend, I don't think anyone maybe played to a level that they'd probably be happy with.
No, definitely not. Up front, I'd say the only two players that really would you could say that would be happy with themselves would probably Colin Leary. In his first real big championship game, I thought he done well. I was very surprised he was taken off, and Ben O'Carroll. The rest wouldn't have been happy with themselves. Like in terms of, look, we talked before about Roscommon have good forwards, but we haven't been seeing it. We've been seeing it in bursts throughout the league. I'm not sure. Again, it goes back to maybe the makeup of the team. I think we're playing a lot, even around the middle of the field, midfield and half back line. We're playing a lot of the same type of players. Good footballers want to play ball, but then we have a lot of players who, when we don't have the ball, want to walk back and tackle and get the ball back, which is a fundamental. If you don't have the ball, you're not going to be doing anything going forward. So I think we're very good going forward, but defensively, and I don't mean just the defenders, we're weak. I think defending as a team, and it probably comes back to that work rate piece that I was talking about earlier. We probably don't have enough really players that are working hard. But our forward play is just poor at the minute. It's probably not since the Monaghan game, I would say, where Diarmid put on an exhibition that day, and there was a lot of interplay and things seemed to be going well. Just hasn't clicked since that, I would say.
Yeah, because Conor, I think Davy Burke alluded to, and I think even the Sunday game alluded to, like Roscommon, 7 out of 8 at half time, and look, that's percentage-wise, that's very good, but is 8 shots in a half enough?
We're not scoring enough yet. Those forwards aren't scoring enough. Like, Keane McKeown is a scorer, he's not scoring enough. Kieran, Diarmid, and not scoring enough. Ben even not scoring enough. Like, these are all players that are supposed to be kicking 3 or 4 or 5 points a game, especially with the new rules, you would imagine. From what I can see, I don't know if the lads, when they look back at the video of these couple of games, what I would be disappointed in them is with the new rules, you go buy a man and have a support player, there's a shot opportunity, like there is every time. And you'd often see Roscommon players, as opposed to Galway players or other players playing with these new rules, they're still doing the cross and over an awful lot more than other teams. Whereas if you make one pass across and you freeze it there for a second, there's an opportunity for that man, be it Kieran, Diarmuid, and Ben, to just go at their man. And the worst case scenario, you're probably going to win a free, because now you're not facing into 5 players there. You're facing into one and maybe a second coming across to you, but that's your opportunity to pass it off for the shot then. And we're not taking on our players enough, because maybe I have no idea what's going on in training. Maybe it's not being practiced enough. Maybe they're just not noticing these opportunities. They're too used to the old rules. But there is so many times where we could just go by a man, 4 steps, take your shot, and that's enough. If we shot, as you said, 8 shots, if we shot, we'd get the scores, because that's the type of players we have. But we're not creating the shooting opportunities. I think that's one way we're completely missing for some reason. We're just not taking on our man. It's more than likely 1-on-1 now. Go by him, take a shot. Done. And you'll be happy enough then.
Yeah, because Cathal, are players too programmed now into actually percentages and shot efficiency and all that? That I'm not saying they're playing with no risk, but like I looked at even the league final against Monaghan, the way Monaghan, when they got the ball, they broke, they kicked, they took on fellas. I still think maybe us, along with a few other teams, and even Galway in the second half actually held the ball for maybe 2 minutes, and they actually did get a score off it, but still just in the old way of, not maybe just taking risk enough.
Teams are kind of transitioning back. I think, teams break out, and Roscommon at times are really good when they get the ball and they're transitioning the ball forward, and when it's on the first attack, they look impressive. But then when they get stopped up and it's the 11-on-11, it's kind of over and back. And like what Conor was saying, there is space there to take the players on, but they're not willing to take it on. I watched the Leitrim Mayo game, and Mayo were similar. Watched the Cork Curry game, was more up and down the field. But a lot of teams are still stuck in that old transition mode where they're afraid to lose the ball, as you say. But look, you don't know that unless you're at training and knowing what they're practicing. But definitely after that first transition play, I suppose the creativity to create the next second or third phase of that attack is it's very stagnant, or it looks for I suppose the forwards. We have creative forwards. There's no doubt about that. Like we're lucky in that sense, but the interplay just doesn't seem to be clicking at the moment, I suppose.
Yes, Conor, you mentioned as well regarding team selection, if the first game doesn't go well and you might change it again. Like, judging by the team we saw against Galway, should that be the same type of team that faces into the round one? Because, again, you're playing a provincial champion away, so you're playing either the Connacht winners, more than likely Kerry, Dublin, or a Donegal, Armagh, or Tyrone, more than likely. So away from home, so you're actually you're facing pretty much the same challenge you came up against Galway on last Sunday.
Well, if you look back at the last 4 or 5 games where Roscommon have played the league and that first championship game, Davy Burke has made maybe 2 or 3 changes in each game. So I think he's probably just going to do similar. He's not going to make wholesale changes. There's probably going to be 2 or 3. I'd say, like Carl mentioned, the likes of Dylan Ram might come in. Shane Killoran come on for a while there, might throw him in. Maybe he's physical, maybe he'll work hard. I don't know. 2 or 3 changes, a different forward comes in for someone that they deem didn't play well or whatever. That's about it, though. There's not going to be a whole pile more than 2 or 3 changes. That's all he has done after any of the other, we'll say, disappointing results in the league. So I'm sure that's all he's going to do again. And to be fair, that's probably all you can do. You can't completely change a team, having not played them all year. So I think that will be fair enough, and have a go at that first game and then weigh it up again for the second one. So it's difficult to know what to do in terms of personnel, and it's difficult to know if it's going to work or not, especially, as you say, against possibly a top 4 team in Ireland. So it's tricky, but you probably can't make too many changes.
Yeah, because Cathal, I think he'll even be. I think already he's going to be eyeing up that third game. I remember the game in Croke Park against Dublin last year, and it was kind of like, yeah, we'll go up, we'll see, we'll play a bit of football. Even the Mayo game the next day would be great if we win, but it was almost like the third game you're playing the 4th seeds at a neutral venue, and it's almost like you're gearing up to that. So that's the problem with this group stage format, that nearly allows maybe a Roscommon to try out things for the first 2 games, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but I think they're going to have to come with a big performance. Like, the reality is the players and management will be disappointed. what they produced. It wasn't what they planned. It just didn't go to plan, and they won't want to follow it up with a second, game of a similar, scoreline and performance, because then it's harder to pick it up. So I think they're still going to have to come with a big performance the next day, so that doesn't happen, and that they can then build up, even if they lose the game, that they can build momentum into the second game and the third game, and beat, I suppose, the teams that are maybe ranked slightly lower. Hopefully, that's what will happen. But I'd be hoping for a huge increase in work rate and energy and that type of thing for that first game, regardless of who that is against.
And just going back to the games, I don't know if we mentioned it enough. Galway were very good. Like, they knew exactly what they were at. Made everything look very easy, and it was also noticeable on the sideline too. Even from the TV cameras, that Pádraig Joyce was very, we'd say, calm and collected and professional, whereas Davy Burke was just doing all sorts of antics on the sideline that maybe that's his personality, maybe you don't need from a manager. Maybe it's kind of a distraction too. So I know we need to, and Darragh, you said to me on this before about Davy Burke after a game and what he said strange things after a game before. So maybe he needs to dial that down a bit and focus on the game that's going on and what's happening in front of him.
Yeah, I think you touched on it there, Conor. The reality is Roscommon and Galway are at different stages. Galway have been in 2 of the last 3 All-Ireland finals. Conor, when we in 17 and 19, we were going up to play Galway. 2 teams were at very similar levels, either the top of Division 2, bottom of Division 1. There was very, very little between the 2 teams. Of that 3 years in particular, Galway have just moved on, and we've seen the weekend, they're a lot further ahead maybe than we thought they were, and that's just the reality of it. We know that there's probably more in Roscommon, but that probably has to be taken into account as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said this as well, and I said it here. And we keep saying it, that it's logical. We're the 8th best team in the country, and unfortunately, that's kind of where we're stuck. We've got to a quarter-final. We've got promoted. We've got relegated. We've got promoted. We're exactly the 8th best team in the country. So we can't really be expecting to be beaten that much above us, maybe once every so often, like the Tyrone game I mentioned. But if you're a player and you've got to a quarter-final, you might hope to get to a semi-final. But if you're the 8th best county in the country consistently over 10 years, you can't really be expecting much better than getting to a quarter-final. Like, if you're really honest, as supporters or as anybody, the hope as a player, if you've already been to a quarter-final, is obviously to get to the next stage, which is a semi-final. But we are the 8th best team in the country, very consistently the 8th best team in the country, which is very good. But there's also the reality, like Cathal said, of a Galway team looking to win an All-Ireland with a realistic chance of doing that.
Yeah, I think probably from the fans' point of view, that I think everyone has to be realistic, that I don't think anyone was demanding a win against Galway. I think probably people were looking maybe for a similar performance that Cork put in against Kerry or Monaghan did against Donegal at the weekend. That, yes, they didn't win. I mean, Cork pushed Kerry all the way. Monaghan were within a kick of a ball by the end. That, they can take something out of the performance. They can take positives. They push those All-Ireland contenders. Whereas Roscommon, unfortunately, on Sunday, you can't really take anything but negatives from it.
No, but it probably, Kerry were not near their best, in that game at the weekend. Cork could have got something out of that. And probably for Roscommon to get something out of the game, we needed Roscommon to come with a huge performance, which they didn't. And Galway needed to be sub the level they were, and the reality is they put on a serious performance the weekend, around the middle, up front. They just looked so seamless, and the reality is they're missing probably their 2 best players, Shane Walsh and Conor. So that probably has to be factored in as well, and it was a 9-point defeat. It could have been more.
Look, to finish up on, Cathal, I haven't had you on for a few months. Been chatting to Conor about these new rules. I just want your own take. Conor hates them. He
Just
wants
don't
them
get
gone.
Conor started on the rules anyway.
I don't hate them all. I just don't think there was a need for it at all. If you implemented the 4-step rule consistently, if referees were brave enough to pull for 4 steps, you wouldn't need any rule changes. I guarantee you that.
Absolutely. That's not an FRC problem, though.
No, it's not.
Looking at it, there's definitely tweaks you could make in it, depending on your perspective. But I think as a whole, I think they've been good. I've watched a lot of football. I've been at a few club games the last couple of weekends. As a spectacle, the games are better. Like you actually want to sit down and watch games. Like last year, you were just sitting down and you could be on Twitter or Instagram for half the game, and you could go out and make a cup of tea, and you wouldn't have missed anything in the game. Whereas now, like I watched the Cork Kerry game this weekend, it was class. Lots of really good games, and I suppose that's ultimately what when you go to any sporting event, you want something that's entertaining, and I think it's definitely more entertaining than it was the last 2 years. There's a couple of things you could tweak, but in the whole, I'd be happy with it.
Conor, have you seen the light after that classic in Páirc Uí Chaoimh at the weekend?
Well, look, not about it. It's fine, yeah, not about tweaks or anything. But I know I'm not sure of the stats on this, and I don't think you agree with me there. But let's see how the championship goes. But one thing I think is beginning to happen is that goals are beginning to dry up a small bit, and I think the reason for that is. Look, and I know there were goals at the weekend, but the reason for that is defenders are finding it difficult. So you have a choice to make: a 2-pointer, a goal, or a 1-pointer. And defenders are basically, if every defensive situation leads to the opposition getting a 1-pointer, as a defender, I think you're taking that now. You're nearly given the 1-pointer above anything else. So then your hope is on your next attack, you might get a 2-pointer and you win the game that way. So I think you're giving up the 1-pointer situation. So then the opposition teams are taking those 1-pointers because they're obviously on from 20 yards or 30 yards instead of going for the goal because you're offering them up. So I think there might be an issue with goals drying up as the year goes on. But again, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think when you come into the All Ireland series and you get to real knockout stuff, even provincial finals coming up. Quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals. I think you get a better teams are getting better at it as you go along. I think we'll really see what they're like, and you won't be able to make a full evaluation. Even club championships and that probably September, October before you're really able to give a full analysis on it.